All right, let's take a look at just how easy it is to build an app with Remix and Remix Easy Mode. Remix Easy Mode is a brand new NPM package in beta, which is an opinionated toolkit for developing highly interactive, typesafe remix apps built with Zod and inspired by the TRPC and React Query developer experience. Let's get started. So the first thing I want to do is just scaffold a remix app. So we're going to use just the basic npx create remix at latest command. Let's run that. Where would you like to create your app? So today we're going to create an app where the user can submit their favorite word and that'll get saved to a database. Really simple. So to that end, let's call it /favorite word app. It's asking us what type of app do we want to create, just the basics. Let's just stick with the default Remix app server here. And of course, we're going to use TypeScript. Would you like me to run npm install? Sure, why not? All right, so let's cd into the favorite word app folder. And let's go ahead and just install some dependencies. So let's do npm I at Prisma/client, and let's do Remix Easy Mode, and let's do Zod. So it's going to install those three dependencies. And then we're going to have one developer dependency, which is Prisma itself. So let's do npm I/d or -d Prisma. And with that, let's go ahead and open up Visual Studio Code. So we've got a Remix app here. The first thing I always do is just jump into the index file and delete some of the cruft. I guess cruft isn't a very nice word. Just delete the extra stuff we don't need. And let's call it favorite word app. Now it looks like we've got an error in our node modules. I'm not sure what exactly that is. There's just some goofy thing. So let's pop into the tsconfig.json and just for now say skip libcheck true. That should make that go away. Yep, it did. Cool. So let's just run this app so we can get it opened up. And then we should see nothing really. Yeah, we've got favorite word app up at the top here. Cool. So next, what I want to do is get Prisma set up. So let's copy this command here. This is just from Prisma basic quick start. This is going to get SQLite going for us. So let's just use VS Code's built-in terminal here. Great. So that created this file here, this Prisma schema. Let's go ahead and add in a model for our favorite word. So we'll say model favorite word. Let's say created at date time. Yep, thanks Copilot. That looked great for the ID. And then let's also create favorite word. In fact, we can just call it word. That's all right. Word string. Awesome. So back in our terminal, let's run npx prisma db push to just actually send that new model to our SQLite database. And let's also run npx prisma studio so we can just double check that that worked. So that's running at localhost 5555. Yeah, great. So we've got our favorite word model here with no data in it. Let's go ahead and close this screen. We don't need that anymore. And we're just going to use the built-in terminal so we can close this one too. And in fact, we can close this, but we're going to need this. So with this is just from another Prisma blog post, and this helps us get the Prisma client set up. So I'm just going to copy that, create a new folder inside of app. I'm going to call it server. It doesn't really matter what you call any of this, but let's say prisma.server.ts, and let's just go ahead and paste that in there. Great. So now we can close all of this out. I'm going to create a new resource route called API.favoriteword.ts. Inside, we're going to export an action. And as the args of the action, we want something called CTX, context, typed as data function args. And let's just say type there to get rid of that. Inside of here, we're going to return something from Remix Easy Mode called the data function helper. Now, 99 out of 100 times, this is going to be with an action, not a loader, but once in a while you'll use it with a loader, so that's why we're using the generic data function helper term here instead of action helper. So first, let's just pass that context that we're getting in here right on into the data function helper. The next thing that this wants is an input schema. Now, we don't have an input schema defined, so let's use Zod to do that. Let's say const input schema equals z dot object. Always do an object. You'll see why in a little bit. Let's say word z dot string. Cool. Now, we could stop there, but we don't have to. If we want to be a little bit fancier, we could maybe say dot trim to clean it up a little bit before going to the database. If we want to do a little bit more validation, like let's say we want to make sure the user input is truthy, so we can do .min1. And let's see, let's say .max45. I actually looked it up, and the longest English word is apparently 45 letters long. So .45. And then let's do .refine. And here's where we're going to just make sure that the user is, that the user is indeed submitting us like a normal English word. So I'm going to copy in some regex that I had pre-prepared for that, okay? So here's our input schema. Again, Zod is making sure that it's a string, trimming the ends of it. It needs to be a minimum of 1 and a maximum of 45 characters long. And then we're just making sure there's no spaces. It's only under a lowercase standard Latin letters. Cool, so that's our input schema. Now, the next thing that the data function helper wants is something called a bouncer. We're just going to say null for now, but as a quick aside, the purpose for the bouncer is basically for running authentication middleware. And if you want to prevent a user after you check, a JWT or database session or whatever from accessing a route, you can just throw an error from there, or return or throw a redirect. Or if you check the session and they're validated, you can return a session object. But in this case, we're just going to set it to null because we're not doing authentication today. Now, here is where the actual business logic goes. And it goes into a property called the callback here. And this is a lot like TRPC, if you're familiar with TRPC. So it's just going to take an async function, and the input, the user input, is going to be passed to the callback. So now you can see that this is typed. So we're getting input word string. That's based on this input schema there. If we did have a bouncer here, like let's say we returned, yep, you are authorized as const for good measure, we could grab that as session here. So you can see this is typed as, yep, you are authorized. Or if we just did, let's see, like throw a new error, session is going to be never, because you're never going to get past this. So that's pretty neat. But again, we're not going to do authentication today, so let's just set that as null. And we're only going to be working with this user input here. So let's go ahead and actually do the business logic here by saving the word to the database. And that is Prisma. So we're going to do await Prisma dot favorite word dot create. Okay. And then it's going to be data, and it's going to be word input dot word. It's as simple as that. So if we want to pass something back from this, we can say const res equals wait and return res if we want, but we don't have to. Cool. So that's all there is to our action. And the next thing we're going to do to enable us to use this in a full stack way is export a hook here. So let's call our hook use save favorite word. And we are going to return another helper hook called use action. Now, unlike data function helper up here, which you might use with a loader once in a while, this you're only ever going to do with an action. So this one is in fact called use action. Now this takes a couple of generics, which are the action and the input schema. So let's just pass those in as types to use action. And then we are going to pass literally the input schema in, which is used for client-side validation. And then we're going to pass in the path of the action that we want to run, which is /API/favorite word based on this file name here. Cool. This just makes sure that the underlying Remix fetcher actually knows which action to call. Cool. So that's all there is to our resource route. Let's pop back over to the index and let's make use of it. So let's go ahead and grab something from that hook that we exported. And it passes us back a few different things, but in this case, what we're looking for is form props and run. Run is basically just saying, yep, go ahead and do this mutation. Form props helps us with our form helpers to get some nice type safety. So let's import the form helper from Remix Easy Mode and pass the form props in. And then let's also pass in run to the onSubmit. All right. So now you don't have to just pass the run in bare to the onSubmit. You can do whatever you want in here. But if you want, you can just pass run directly into there. And that's what we're going to do here. So the next thing we need is our input helper, also coming from Remix Easy Mode. Once again, we're going to pass in our form props, which just gives us the nice type safety. We're going to give it a label, and let's call that label favorite word. And the name is going to be whatever we called the property on the object in the input schema. It looks like we said word here. So that's what we need to pass in here. Name equals word. That means that the user submitted data from this input helper is ultimately going to be passed into this slot in the Zod object, this property. So if we said asdiff here, we're going to get the type error because nothing called asdiff exists right here. Now, if we change this to asdiff, we're getting an error down here because this is type safe as well. So we've got input asdiff, and then now we're calling word. So if we change that to asdiff, this error goes away, and everything's lined up. Now, we don't want to say asdiff, so let's change it back to word. Got this error down here. Let's change it back to word. And then let's fix the error here. We're back to word. Cool. So that's just showing off a little bit of the type safety. Let's give our form a button, type equals submit, and save. Great. So there's our button. Let's run our app. npm run dev. This should now be running at localhost 3000. In fact, it may already be running here. Yep, we've got it running here. So we've got this this input and this button. Cool, so we've got this favorite word here. Let's say baseball, and hit save. I hit saved by hitting enter, actually. So sorry if you didn't see that. Let's pop over to Prisma Studio. If we hit refresh, we can see that baseball now got saved here. Let's do another one. I'll actually hit the button this time. I'll say coffee, save. And if we refresh this, you can see coffee is now here. So that's pretty cool. What if we say coffee is great, a phrase? This should violate the input schema because remember we were ensuring that we just have a normal, no spaces, lowercase Latin letters. So what happens here? Oh, we're getting invalid input. Now that's just a Zod error that's passed back. Let's say we just do nothing. Remember we had a minimum of 1. Now we're getting string must contain at least 1 characters. If we type something really long, longer than 45 characters, getting string must at most contain 45 characters. Cool. So yeah, we're getting the Zod client-side validation there, which is great. Now you'll notice I popped open the network tab here. When we are not doing valid user input, we're not even calling the server, which is pretty cool. Of course, the user can bypass that, so we're definitely doing server-side validation as well through this. But it's a nice touch that technically we're just doing automatic client-side validation. Again, unless the user is nasty and bypasses that. So again, let's say, oh no, we already did baseball. Let's say cherry, save. Now we got no error and we can see that we did in fact get success true data. This is what's passed back from the callback in the data function helper created at ID in the word cherry. And again, we can see that we've got cherry ID 3. Okay, so pretty cool. One thing you can also do, which is pretty nice, is you can pass in like an on success. And let's just do something naughty here and say alert. Yo, it worked. Don't ever use alerts, but we're gonna do it. So let's say banana. We hit save and we're getting an alert. Yo, it worked. This can actually take an argument here, which is indeed typesafe. So if we wanted to like just on success console log that result, this is going to be the shape of what is going to console log. So we've got type safety in our mutation callbacks here. And then we also, like, this returns the result. So let's say we just wanted to like JSON stringify the result here. We're also getting type safety here. So you can see it gives you the 2 cases. We've either got a success false, data undefined, error string version if there's a failure, or we've got success true, data favorite word, error undefined. So those are just a couple extra areas where we have some really, really nice type safety here. So we can just pop open the console and show that we do in fact have this console.log running here, like we said, and we're printing out that result here. You know, this is really, really nice. I hope you like it. And if you have any comments or complaints or whatever, please let me know. All right. Have a good one. Thanks. Bye.